Hello everyone, it's Leon here, and I'm joined by Phil, who has been playing, or has reviewed, I should say, Call of Duty on PS3 and PS4.
That is correct.
What was the number you have assigned it?
I have given it 8 points out of a maximum of 10 points.
Okay, is it another COD?
It's very much another COD.
Obviously it's another COD, but you know what I mean. Is it kind of the same thing again?
It doesn't reinvent the wheel. I thought perhaps with it being a next-gen title, there might be some big branching out in terms of its level design. You're still largely on rails.
Yep.
There are still constant gimmicks. There are still constant drone levels. There's the dog now. Things like that. However, I did very much enjoy all the gimmicks, and I enjoyed being on rails, and it's sufficiently well crafted. The single player, I mean the multiplayer we'll get onto, but the solo campaign is sufficiently well crafted that even having sort of played it in massive sort of 4 and 5 hour chunks, I didn't feel all that fatigued. And there are only a few instances in that whole solo campaign in which it sort of falls back on the old tactics of like, we've sort of run out of ideas, so here's a big shooting gallery and there's like 40 men and they're just going to conveniently pop out of cover until you're done. Away from that, elsewhere there were some really good ideas. Actually, case in point is the abseiling level, in which you're shooting people from above and from the side and swinging around and taking out bits of glass with a laser cutter and things. There are constantly new tricks to show you and to keep you entertained with. Okay,
I mean, so you played the PS4 and the PS3 version. Did the PS4 version feel significantly like the future? Did it just feel like just better textures?
It's a funny one. In multiplayer, it's noticeably much better looking, and I think because they want a cleaner aesthetic overall in multiplayer so that the action's clear and quick and suited to sort of tournament play. I think it's more noticeable. In single player, sometimes it's a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes I had to like look down and check that it was a DualShock 4 and that I wasn't accidentally playing the PS3 version. In other levels, it looks suitably next gen. It's a slightly Heath Robinson situation to have, a sort of effectively the last game's engine that's been modified. You feel like the sliders have been turned up a little bit. It's not quite, it needs a next-gen engine.
They made this big fuss, didn't they, about how it was a whole new engine, and then they kind of admitted it was the old engine with sort of new bits stuck on. Kind of
just triggers broom.
Yeah. You mentioned the gimmick. So obviously one of the things COD does is it finds new ways to make you shoot people, and it has all these, always goes for big set pieces. What are the sort of the set pieces and the gimmicks it throws out this time?
Well, Riley here is one of the big gimmicks.
Is he? Do you have him is he controllable at all times, or is he given to you at specific points?
Yeah, it's very much you're on a leash as much as he is.
Nice.
Yeah. So you sync with him, like how you sync with a dog in real life, and you can control them remotely.
Yes.
So you do that in COD, and this you become a sort of throat removing drone.
So you're a furry drone, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So you sneak up on these people, you hit L1, and he will take his throat out, and all the guards around him can't hear that noise of a man's throat being removed by a dog. And then you just move on to the next guy in the long grass. It's a bit like that scene in Jurassic Park 2, where the raptor's just destroying everyone in the field. So he's one of the big gimmicks. I guess the other thing is that because you're playing in a squad of ghosts and you're super stealthy people, inevitably it escalates to a level where you're taking out entire armies each level.
Yeah.
But at the start of each level, and occasionally for the entire mission, you are genuinely doing really stealthy things. There's one sort of crisis looking level in which you've only got a pistol and a knife, and you're just taking men out as a human rather than a dog this time in the long grass. There's a really good mission in the snow, which is kind of plays out like a bank heist more than a COD mission. You're in disguises. You do the classic COD thing of like you pick the man and then the 3 other guys with you all pick out targets on a base at the same time. Very satisfying. It's been done before, but it's no less enjoyable for doing it again.
I mean, you mentioned Crisis. What is the setup this time? Because it's in the future now.
Yeah, it's 2023, and the Federation has formed as the new superpower. So all the South American nations have banded together to form the Federation, and they've taken control of this. Now this is where it gets tricky. So there's a sort of anti-nuclear war satellite thing in space called Odin that the US controls, and somehow to sort of stop nuclear war, this thing is just a bunch of nuclear warheads in space. Anyway, the Federation hijacks it and they nuke San Diego, and consequently the US is torn apart, and the Federation becomes the primary superpower. It controls all the minerals and resources on Earth. So the US decides that they'll put 4 men on the job and restore order.
Well, just sort it all out, mate.
And 4 men and a dog, and you're one of those 4 men.
What is the... Because I was told when I visited Infinity Ward that the ghosts have sort of become this kind of almost like this symbol of hope. They're this kind of supernatural sort of... almost supernatural kind of force that people believe in. Is that just a load of guff?
It's a little bit marketing hokum. There isn't... As you might expect, there isn't a whole lot of time spent on narrative exposition.
No.
So what you're referring to occurs in, 30 seconds of dialogue, maybe. I mean,
right. Okay.
It's alluded to. They're kind of like the 300 of the modern era,
Gotcha.
I suppose.
And you there's 2 brothers that get sort of inducted into the ranks?
That's right, yeah. I mean, we're sort of into spoiler territory, but yeah,
Okay.
it's a kind of family story. Here's another one of the kind of, I don't want to say gimmicks because it implies that there's something wrong with it, but so there's the space sections and the sea sections in which is sort of low gravity shooting.
Yeah.
And that works quite well. It's maybe a little bit frustrating to have to sort of drift very glacially between cover. But again, just in terms of a change of colour palette from the last level, which is like maybe in the snow or in the jungle, it works pretty well.
Do you get a lot of kind of variation? Or are you sort of zipping around between sort of different setups and different environments? Do you feel like you're globe trotting?
Yeah, it's good at that, and it doesn't do it in quite such a ridiculous way as Black Ops 2 did. In that, I think you go from shooting a rocket launcher at a helicopter while on horseback in Afghanistan into being in the far future and controlling drones from the tactics view. It's a little bit less schizophrenic than that. It's still profoundly silly, but yeah, you really do cover some ground. You're in space, you're under the sea, you're in the jungle, you're in the snow, you're in the usual sort of post-apocalyptic cityscapes. There's a little bit of present day as well. You really cover some ground.
Okay, cool. We're seeing some multiplayer here now. They've made quite a lot of changes this time around, haven't they? They talked about sort of stripping it back and rebuilding it. Does it feel like it?
There are quite a few changes actually. So there are 30 new weapons, which they'll obviously have to balance over the weeks and months after release.
Are they going with? Are these real weapons, or are they sort of future kind of? Not sci-fi, but future made up but real kind of weapons.
I think there are a mix of real world weapons, not necessarily known by the. There's the SA-80, which is real, and then there are a few, like there's the assault rifle that fires in space. So there's a bit of a mix, and rather than each weapon being assigned to a particular rank, so you can't unlock a particular assault rifle until you're at level 30. It's the point system from Black Ops again, so it's a little bit less penalising for new players.
Okay.
There are a couple of new game modes. There's Cranked, which is like the Jason Statham movie. Once you kill someone, you blow up in 30 seconds unless you kill again. There's Blitz mode, which is capture the flag without the flags as well.
How do you capture the flag without the flag?
You just kind of run onto the zone. It's like American football.
Okay, yeah.
It's pretty good.
So you just score a touchdown with grenades.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I mean, does it feel like? Does it just feel like it's increase the speed again? Because obviously, if you come into sort of Call of Duty now and you haven't been playing it for a while, it's a torturous kind of thing online because you just die spawn. Does it feel like people are going to get a chance to kind of play it if it's not something they've been following since they were 10?
It all depends on the matchmaking, really. It is still very fast paced. It is still 2 and 3 shot kills for most of the time, especially with the marksman rifles that I worry are maybe a little bit overpowered at mid range. Especially a lot of the new maps are sort of long, larger scale, more angles to get killed from. The marksman rifles are really deadly from those that people know how to use them.
Do you see any of the kind of the next gens in the sort of the size of the maps?
It's still 9 versus 9. So we're not talking Battlefield all of a sudden, nor is it trying to be, really. But the maps aren't gigantic. Some of the single player maps, the levels rather, are bigger in terms of the area that you as the player traverse and also the view the draw distance. But in multiplayer, no, it's not a big push towards bridging the gap between it and Battlefield.
So largely it's another Call of Duty on a new console, basically.
It's slightly disappointing in that it's not a completely new next-gen engine. Otherwise, it's really, really good. It's really hard to resist how silly and compulsive it is.
They're always competent, aren't they?
I'd go further than competent. It's very, very enjoyable.
Cool. 8 out of 10 then.